The battlefield was silent now, except for the distant crackle of burning metal. Smoke curled up into the sky, painting the horizon in shades of gray and orange. The ruins of the human outpost still smoldered, and broken weapons lay scattered across the dirt. It looked like death had already claimed this place. And yet one human still stood. His uniform was torn, his face covered in dust and blood, but his eyes burned steady. He clutched his rifle, though the ammo count on the display showed nearly empty. He had been fighting for hours, maybe longer. He couldn't tell anymore. But what he did know was this: he was not alone. Across the rubble, a shadow moved. She stepped into the open, tall and strong, her alien armor gleaming even under layers of soot. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes glowing faint blue. Her people had been hunting humans for generations, and she was one of their finest soldiers. She walked with the confidence of someone who never lost. Her weapon, a sleek alien pistol, was pointed straight at his chest. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind carried the ashes of fallen men, drifting between them like ghosts. Then her lips curved into a cruel smile. "Final words before you die, human." She mocked, her voice sharp like a blade. The human didn't flinch. He didn't lower his weapon, nor did he raise it. He simply looked at her, calm, almost amused, as if she had asked him something silly. His mouth curled into a grin. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Your safety's still on." Her eyes flickered. For a split second, she glanced at her weapon, instinct betraying her pride. That was all he needed. He smirked wider, tilting his head like a man who had just read her every thought. He hadn't moved, hadn't fired, but his words alone cut deeper than any bullet. The alien's finger twitched on the trigger, but doubt had slipped into her veins. Was it true? Had she been careless? She tightened her jaw and shook her head, forcing the hesitation away. No human should have been able to stand there, staring into death, and mock her back. Yet here he was, dirty, wounded, exhausted but unbroken. His courage pressed against her like an invisible weight. "You think you're clever," she hissed, stepping closer. "But you're only delaying your end." He chuckled softly, the sound rough but steady. "If I wanted to delay it, I'd run." "Do I look like I'm running?" Her eyes narrowed. She hated the calm in his voice, hated the way he stood as if the universe had no power over him. Her people believed fear kept prey weak, but this one, he didn't fear her at all. The silence stretched again, thick with tension. Around them, flames popped and cracked in the ruins, the only sound between breaths. He lifted his rifle slightly, not to aim, but just enough to show he wasn't broken yet. His hands were steady. "So what's it gonna be?" he asked. "You pull that trigger, or you find out what happens if you don't." Her heart raced, though she would never admit it. He had nothing. No backup, no army, no hope. And yet, somehow he looked at her as if she was the one trapped. She tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "You humans never learn. Always so arrogant, always thinking words can save you." "Maybe not words," he replied, still smiling. "But timing? That saves everything." Her grip tightened on the weapon. She was supposed to kill him. End it. Prove once again that her people were stronger. But her instincts screamed at her, "Don't underestimate him." Not this one. And that fear, tiny, unwelcome, made her furious. She stepped closer until only a few feet separated them. The blue glow in her eyes burned brighter. "You are bold, human, too bold. Perhaps I should teach you what your courage costs." He tilted his head, studying her face. "Or maybe," he whispered, "you'll remember me every time you close your eyes. The man you couldn't kill, even when you had the chance." Her lips parted, words caught in her throat. For the first time, she wasn't sure who was mocking who. The fire cracked louder, sending sparks into the night sky. Around them, the battlefield felt alive again, as if holding its breath. Two warriors stood locked in a silent war of willpower. one with a weapon ready, the other with nothing but a grin, and somehow the grin was winning. The alien's finger twitched on the trigger. Just one pull, and the last human in this outpost would fall. Yet his grin, steady and unshaken, froze her hand more than any weapon could. Her eyes darted for a fraction of a second to her pistol. Just a glance, nothing more. But he caught it. He saw the doubt spark in her, and he knew that doubt was more powerful than bullets. He had been fighting aliens long enough to understand one thing. They didn't just kill with weapons. They killed with fear. If a human showed fear, the fight was already lost. But if a human mocked them, if he made them hesitate, that hesitation was his opening. He shifted his weight slightly, just enough to test her reaction. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped back. Half a foot, weapon still raised. Yes, there it was. Instinct. She didn't trust her own weapon anymore. The human spoke, his voice steady, low, almost playful. Tell me something. Do you even know how many of my kind I've taken down today? She frowned, her voice sharp. You, alone? Impossible. He tilted his head, pretending to think. Could be 5, could be 10. I lost count after the explosions. But I do remember the look in their eyes when they realized they weren't hunting me. I was hunting them. It wasn't true. He hadn't killed that many. He'd barely survived. But lies, if told with confidence, were deadlier than truth. The alien's jaw tightened. She had fought humans before, fragile creatures who screamed when cornered, who begged when weapons aimed at their heads. But this one twisted. Reality with a smirk. She barked back, trying to steady herself. Your arrogance will be your death. Arrogance? He chuckled, brushing dirt off his shoulder as if they were merely having a casual conversation in the ruins. No, confidence, big difference. You aliens never learned that, did you? For the first time in her life, she felt the faint prickle of uncertainty crawl across her skin. Her people had trained her to dominate, to strike fear into her enemies. But here she stood, her weapon steady, her armor flawless and still. She felt like she was the one being hunted. The human noticed the flicker in her eyes. He leaned into it. You think you've got me trapped, but here's the trick. He sighed, lowering his voice into a whisper that carried across the dead battlefield. You're the one standing exactly where I wanted you to. Her pulse jumped. She snapped her head around instinctively, scanning the shadows of the ruined buildings. What if his words were true? What if other humans were hidden in the smoke, waiting for her to make one wrong move? Her kind respected warriors, but they feared strategists. Humans weren't the strongest, weren't the fastest, but they had cunning. And cunning killed armies. Lies, she hissed, though the sharpness in her tone betrayed the small seed of fear growing inside. He shrugged. Maybe, or maybe I just don't fight fair. She bared her teeth, lowering her pistol just enough to glare into his eyes. You mock me as if you hold power here. And yet, he replied smoothly, you still haven't pulled the trigger. Her breath caught. He was right. She had wasted precious moments. Any other enemy she would have finished without hesitation. Why was she playing with this one? Because he was different. Because his grin crawled under her skin, refusing to leave. Because for the first time, she wasn't sure who the prey really was. Her weapon shook not from weakness, but from rage. She slammed the safety off with a sharp click, letting him hear it, letting him know the game was over. Or so she thought. In that instant, he moved. Not with clumsy speed, but with deliberate precision. His foot pressed against a piece of broken metal at his feet. With a sharp flick, he kicked it upward, and the jagged shard of steel spun through the air, clattering hard against her pistol hand. Her aim wavered for a fraction of a second. Fraction was all he needed. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, grabbing her wrist before she could fire. His other hand shoved against her armored chest, forcing her back into the rubble. Her weapon fell, clattering against the broken stones. For the first time, she was WEAPONLESS. And for the first time, she looked into human eyes not as a predator, but as a warrior caught off guard, pinned between rubble and the strength of a man she had underestimated. Her breath quickened. "You think tricks can save you?" She spat, straining against his grip. His smile sharpened. "Tricks don't save me, tricks win." Her eyes burned with fury, but beneath that fury was something she had never felt in battle before. Doubt mixed with something dangerously close to respect. Her weapon hit the ground with a sharp clang, echoing in the ruins. For the first time, she felt her wrist forced back, held tight in the human's grip. His strength was raw, not refined like hers, but there was power in his desperation. Alien warrior hissed, her silver-blue eyes glowing brighter as anger fueled her muscles. No human should have been able to disarm her so quickly. No human should have dared to, and yet this one did. Pinned against the broken wall, she twisted her body sharply, slamming her knee toward his side. He blocked with his arm, grunting, as pain flared up his ribs, but he didn't let go. Instead, he leaned closer, his face inches from hers. "You were saying something about my end?" He growled. She snarled and shoved hard, breaking his grip with surprising speed. In one fluid motion, she spun, her armored elbow striking toward his head. He ducked just in time, the blow shattering the stone behind him instead. Dust rained down. As the wall cracked, now unarmed, she relied on her training. Her people were bred for combat, their bodies designed to overpower, their reflexes sharper than any blade. She charged him with raw speed, her fists swinging like hammers. But humans were different. He didn't try to match her strength. He weaved, dodged, and redirected. Every strike she threw, he turned into an opening. Every shove she gave, he used to unbalance her. The battlefield became their arena. Sparks from burning wreckage lit their faces as they moved, strike and counterstrike. Breath and grunt, a dance of survival. She swung her fist at his jaw. He ducked, grabbed her wrist, and twisted. She spun with it, flipping over his back, landing on her feet like a predator. He lunged forward, tackling her to the ground. They rolled across the dirt, kicking up ash and sparks. At one moment, he had her pinned. The next, she flipped him over with brute force. Their movements blurred into chaos, a fight as primal as it was precise. And yet, beneath the clash, something strange grew. Every time his hands touched her, every time her strikes met his, there was a spark. Not just friction, not just rage, something deeper. She hated it. She wanted to kill it. But her body refused to ignore it. Pinned beneath him again, she glared up at him, her chest heaving. He smirked, sweat dripping down his brow. "You're fast," he admitted, "but not fast enough." Her lips curved into something between a snarl and a smile. "You talk too much, human." With a sudden burst, she twisted her hips, throwing him off balance. He hit the ground, but before she could finish him, he rolled, sweeping her legs from under her. She crashed down beside him. Both fighters froze, their faces inches apart in the dust. Their breaths mingled, hot and ragged. The firelight flickered across their eyes, his burning with stubborn resolve, hers glowing with alien intensity. Neither spoke for a long moment. The silence was louder than any weapon. Finally she whispered, her voice rough, "Why don't you fear me?" He smiled faintly, even while pinned against the dirt. "Because fear never won a fight." Her chest tightened. Something about his words clawed at her. She had faced warriors stronger than him, faster than him. But none ever looked at her this way. None ever made her feel this way. She should have killed him already. But she couldn't. Not yet. She pushed off him, standing tall, her fists clenched. "This ends now." He stood too, battered but steady, his grin never fading. "Then make it end." They circled each other again, like predators in the ash. No weapons. No armies. Just flesh, bone, and willpower. The human shifted his stance, lowering his shoulders, ready for her charge. She flexed her fingers, energy buzzing through her veins. This wasn't war anymore. It was something else, something raw, personal. And when they collided again, the battlefield shook with the sound of two worlds clashing. Asterisk. The crash of their bodies echoed through the ruins as human and alien locked once more. Dust swirled around them, lit by the orange glow of fire, as if the very battlefield was holding its breath. She struck fast, her fists moving like lightning. He blocked, dodged, countered with sharp precision. His body ached, every bone screaming for rest, but his mind refused to surrender. The alien warrior was stronger, but strength was not everything. He had learned that long ago. Predators win with teeth, but survivors win with wit. Their fight dragged on, raw and desperate. Broken stones shattered under their feet as they traded blows. Her kick sent him sliding across the ground. His sweep forced her down to one knee. Sweat and ash clung to their faces, but neither would back away. At last, she managed to slam him against a half-collapsed wall, her forearm pressing against his throat. Her glowing eyes burned with triumph as she leaned close. "Now, do you fear me?" she whispered, her breath hot against his ear. But even with her blade-sharp strength, at his neck he grinned. "I don't fear what bleeds." Her jaw tightened. She pressed harder, but something inside her twisted. Why wasn't he breaking? Why wasn't he begging? Instead, he stared at her as if he could see through the steel shell of her armor and into something she herself had long buried. She hated it. She hated him, and yet she couldn't move. For the first time she felt trapped not by his body, but by his gaze. But then a sound. A low metallic click echoed from the shadows. Both froze. The human tilted his head slightly. He knew that sound well. Alien rifles being primed, and not just one. Many. Her head snapped around, fury flashing in her eyes. From the smoke beyond the ruins, dark figures began to emerge. Armored warriors, her kind. Her squad. They had followed her trail. For a heartbeat, she should have felt relief. Backup had arrived. Victory was certain, but instead, her chest tightened. They weren't looking at him. They were looking at her. The commander stepped forward, his voice booming. "You hesitate, soldier. Why is this human still alive?" Her blood chilled. The eyes of her comrades burned with judgment. To hesitate in execution was weakness. To be touched by prey was dishonor. And yet, she had hesitated. The human felt the shift instantly. He saw the tremor in her stance, the way her breath caught. And for the first time, he understood she wasn't just fighting him. She was fighting her own people. He smirked faintly, voice low but sharp. "Looks like the hunter's not me this time. It's you." Her grip on him faltered. For once, she looked almost uncertain. The commander raised his rifle. "Stand. Aside, we'll finish this." But she didn't move. Every instinct screamed at her, "Obey." Yet her body refused. Her hand still pressed against the human's chest, not in killing force anymore, but in a strange act of defiance. He leaned close, whispering so only she could hear. "So what's it gonna be? Kill me or fight them?" Her jaw clenched, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. She had mocked this human, taunted him with death. But now, under the eyes of her own kind, she was the one being judged. The one trapped. Her eyes flicked back to his. He didn't plead. He didn't beg. He only watched her with that same infuriating grin, the grin that refused to break. And for the first time in her life, she felt something stronger than duty. Rage, not at him. At them. In one swift motion, she spun, grabbing her fallen weapon from the dirt. With a roar, she fired not at the human, but at the soldiers who had come for him. The battlefield exploded in chaos. He ducked as energy blasts ripped through the ruins. Sparks and fire lit the night as she charged into her own squad, her strikes fueled by fury. The human stared in shock for a moment, then picked up his rifle. His lips curled into a grin. Guess I know whose side you're on now. Side. By side, two enemies turned allies. The human and the alien fought against the very soldiers who had sent her to kill him. The ruins burned brighter as the battle erupted. Alien rifles spat streaks of blue fire, tearing through the night. But two figures moved against the storm-one human. One alien back to back, fighting like they had always been partners. He fired short bursts from his half-broken rifle, every shot precise, forcing their attackers to scatter. She tore through them with speed and strength, her blade slicing, her armor flashing. The battlefield became chaos, yet there was rhythm in their movements. A strange dance neither had planned, but both somehow understood. At one point, an enemy soldier raised his weapon behind her. Without thinking, the human fired first, the blast, cutting the soldier down. She glanced over her shoulder, her silver blue eyes meeting his for just a second. He smirked. "You're welcome." She should have ignored it. She should have focused only on the fight. But that smirk had lodged itself deep in her chest, heavier than any bullet. Her people had taught her that humans were weak, reckless, and disposable. Yet here was one, bloodied and cornered, saving her. And worse, he was smiling as if death itself was just another joke. Another warrior lunged at the human, knocking the rifle from his hands. The alien commander shouted above the chaos, "Kill him now. Show your loyalty." Her body moved before her mind decided. She blocked the killing strike with her own blade, sparks flying as steel clashed. Her squad mates stared in disbelief. She wasn't protecting prey. She was betraying her kind. The human blinked, surprised, but only for a moment. Then that damn grin spread wider. "Took you long enough to choose," he said. Her teeth clenched, fury flashing across her face. "Don't think this means I like you." He chuckled, retrieving his weapon from the dirt. "You don't have to like me. You just have to keep me alive." They fought harder. Every swing, every shot, every breath was survival, but it was more than that now. She was no longer fighting to prove herself to her people. She was fighting to silence the commander's voice, to silence the doubt that had been planted in her chest since she first looked into human eyes. And the human? He was fighting because he saw something in her, something even she didn't admit. Yet, the commander roared, charging forward with fury. His blade struck down, barely missing the human's head. The human rolled away, but the commander's next strike caught him across the side, cutting deep. He fell back, blood staining his torn uniform. The alien warrior, his would-be executioner, turned with a snarl, rage burning in her veins. She slammed into her commander with a force that shook the ruins, her blade locking against his. "You hesitate for prey?" the commander spat. "You shame us." Her voice thundered in reply, shaking with something she hadn't felt in years. Defiance. "He's not prey." The commander pushed harder, his blade inches from her throat. "Then what is he?" Her answer came not in words, but in action. She twisted, slamming her armored fist into his jaw. The commander stumbled back, his helmet cracking. Behind her, the human staggered to his feet, blood dripping, but grin intact. "Guess I'm harder to get rid of than you thought." She glanced back at him, her chest heaving. And for the first time in front of her people, she didn't hide what she felt. That grin, it wasn't just arrogance anymore. It was strength. It was defiance. And it had changed something inside her she could never take back. Her squad fell back in confusion. The commander, bleeding and furious, shouted for them to fire. But hesitation spread among them, just like it had spread in her. For years they believed humans were insects. Yet this one stood, broken and bloodied, grinning like a warrior who would never kneel, and their finest soldier, their strongest daughter, now stood at his side. The commander raised his weapon. "Then you die with him." She stepped forward, blade ready, her voice like steel. "Better than dying for you." The human, barely standing, laughed under his breath. Now that's a line worth remembering. The flames roared higher, smoke curling into the night sky. For a moment, the battlefield seemed to fade, leaving only two figures standing together. One who was supposed to die, and one who was supposed to kill him, but destiny had shifted, and it had shifted with a grin. The battlefield was chaos. Fire lit the ruins, smoke curled through the air, and the commander's voice thundered above it all. "Traitor! You stand with prey instead of blood?" The alien warrior didn't answer with words. Her blade flashed, striking sparks against the commander's weapon. Every swing carried fury, every strike burned with defiance. The human staggered beside her, wounded but refusing to fall. His rifle spat bursts of fire, covering her as she fought her own people. He could barely breathe, but every time she looked his way, he was still there, still fighting, still grinning. And somehow, that grin gave her strength that they moved as one now. When she struck, he covered her. When he faltered, she shielded him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't trained. It was instinct, born in the flames of betrayal and survival. At one moment, an enemy soldier lunged at him from behind. She spun, cutting the attacker down before the blade could pierce his back. He gave her a quick nod, smirking even through the blood on his lips. At this point, he panted, "I think we're past introductions." She didn't smile, but the corner of her mouth twitched before she forced it away. "Stay alive. I don't save the same human twice." And yet, she knew in her chest that she would. Again and again, the commander roared, slamming her blade aside and knocking her back. "You disgrace your bloodline," he spat. All because of a smile? A trick? She rose slowly, fire in her eyes. "Not a trick," she said. "A choice." The human's legs almost gave out, but he pushed forward, planting himself between her and the squad's fire. His stance was weak, his weapon nearly dry, yet he faced them with a grin that refused to break. "Funny thing about humans," he said, his voice rough but steady. "We fight hardest when we're not fighting for ourselves." The commander, "You are nothing." The human chuckled, spitting blood onto the dirt. "Nothing has been giving you one hell of a fight." The words landed heavier than bullets. The soldiers shifted uneasily. Doubt was poison, and doubt now spread through their ranks. The alien warrior saw it in their eyes. Her people were not unshakable. They respected strength, but they also feared rebellion. And she was showing them something they had never seen before. Loyalty not to blood, not to command, but to choice. She stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with the human. "He is not prey," she said, her voice carrying through the smoke. "He is my equal." For a moment, silence fell. The flames crackled. The soldiers hesitated. The commander snarled, his pride boiling over. "Then you will die as one." He charged, his blade swung, bright and deadly. The human barely raised his rifle before the strike, came crashing down. But she was faster. Her blade caught the commander's in midair. Sparks exploded as the two locked weapons. Her muscles strained, teeth clenched. He towered over her, pressing harder. The human stepped in, grabbing a broken steel rod from the rubble. With a shout, he swung it into the commander's side. The impact staggered him just enough for her to twist her blade and drive him back. They stood together, panting, bruised but unbroken. The commander's eyes burned with fury as he pointed at them. "Kill them both." Yet his soldiers didn't move, not one. Some lowered their weapons. Others exchanged uncertain looks. For the first time, they questioned, not the human, but him. The alien warrior raised her blade high, her voice cutting. "Through the night, I choose my fight, and I choose him." The soldiers wavered, torn between fear of their commander and the sight of their finest warrior defying him. The human leaned close, whispering with that damn grin, "Guess there." Not sure which side to be on. She didn't admit it aloud, but inside she knew he was right. Enemies no more. The battlefield was silent for one breath, then two. Ash drifted in the air like snow. Soldiers who had once stood ready to kill now hesitated, watching their commander face the human and the traitor who stood at his side. The commander's chest heaved, his armor cracked, his pride bleeding heavier than his wounds. Rage burned in his glowing eyes as he pointed his blade at them. You will die here, together. The human leaned on his battered rifle, blood dripping down his side. And yet, his grin hadn't faded. We've heard that one before. The alien warrior shifted her stance, her blade raised. She felt her body ache, her arms heavy from battle. But the fire in her chest kept her standing. She wasn't just fighting the commander anymore. She was fighting everything her people had chained into her since birth. The commander charged. His blade crashed against hers with a sound like thunder. Sparks flew, stone cracked beneath their feet. She gritted her teeth, holding him back with all her strength, but he was stronger. His fury drove him forward, inch by inch. Her arms shook, her knees buckled. Then a shot rang out. The human had fired, his last bullet slamming into the commander's side. It wasn't enough to kill, but it was enough to stagger him. She seized the moment. With a roar, she twisted her blade and slashed across his chest. His armor split, blood spraying into the dust. The commander stumbled, but his rage didn't die. He spun, striking the human with the hilt of his blade. The human fell hard, the air knocked from his lungs. No! She shouted, lunging forward. The commander raised his blade high, ready to finish the human. This ends now. But before the strike fell, the human's voice rasped through bloodied lips. Hey, Commander! The alien paused just for a second. The human's grin returned. Weak, pained, but unbroken. Safety's still on. The words sliced deeper than any blade. The commander faltered, his eyes flickering with the memory of her first hesitation, the moment this all began. And in that flicker, she struck. Her blade pierced through his chest, driving all the way until the light in his eyes went out. His body crashed to the ground, shaking the ruins one last time. Silence followed. The remaining soldiers stood frozen, staring at their fallen commander. None moved, none spoke. Slowly, one by one, they lowered their weapons. The alien warrior stood above the body, her chest heaving, her blade dripping red. She turned, her eyes falling on the human struggling to rise. She rushed to him, pulling his arm over her shoulder to steady him. You stubborn fool, she muttered. He coughed, smiling even through the pain. You're welcome. She shook her head, though a faint smile touched her lips. You should be dead. Should be, he said, his voice rough. But I'm not. Maybe because you didn't let me be. Their eyes met. For a moment, the battlefield around them disappeared. There were no soldiers, no ruins, no smoke, only two warriors bound by something neither had planned, something neither could deny anymore. She had been sent to mock him, to kill him. He had been expected to die. But instead, they had broken. The chain, she whispered, her voice softer than she ever thought it could be. I mocked you once. Now I can't forget you. His grin widened, even through blood and ash. Guess I left an impression. She smirked faintly, shaking her head. More than that, human. Much more. Behind them, her people remained silent, watching. None dared challenge her now. In killing the commander, she hadn't just saved him, she had declared her own freedom. She tightened her grip on his arm, helping him walk away from the ruins. Together, they stepped into the dark horizon, leaving behind fire and chains. The battlefield whispered with the weight of history. Enemies had become allies. Mockery had become memory. And in the silence, one truth lingered. They would never be the same again. Final hook for audience. She had mocked him with death, but found life beside him. He had smiled at the edge of her blade, and now they walked together into a future neither could predict. But was this the beginning of peace or the spark of a greater war?